said, look, we all want to help. All of us want to help. We earned this position to speak on the behalf of our constituents in our homes, in our home districts. We all want to help. America is the most generous country on the planet, and we know that there are people that are wanting, that are hurting, that are seeking a better opportunity. We have a process here. If you ask the American people to obey the law, why is it too hard to ask people that aren't American citizens to obey the law? Yet that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. It is unacceptable. I'd like to recognize great lady from Georgia, Ms. Greene.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perry. And maybe you and I can discuss together, and maybe you can help me with some things. You know, I'm new to Congress. I'm a freshman member of Congress, and I've been pretty shocked. I thought Congress's role is to create a budget for the United States, for our government, and we're about to run out of money in just a few weeks. And the 117th Congress hasn't produced a budget to keep the government open. It's appalling to me as a business owner that we're even in this situation. You know, private businesses go out of business when we are not able to produce a budget that makes a profit to be able to pay our employees, to be able to buy our materials and continue. So that's something I'm struggling with. And I'm also struggling with this, Mr. Perry, is that I heard the Democrats present a bill today that they're very much wanting to pass called the Competes Act, having to do with our American jobs and economy in relation to China. But here's the real trouble for me, and this is where I struggle. You know, American jobs are so important, but yet our border is wide open and being invaded every single day. And I just can't comprehend why Congress doesn't pass legislation and write into law that illegal aliens should be deported, because illegal aliens are competing with American jobs, and I find that to be a major problem, especially being in the construction industry where we have to employ legal Americans to do these jobs. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and maybe you can help me out here.
Well, I don't know if I can help you with that, Marjorie, but I was also in business. We had a mechanical contracting business. It's hard, heavy work. And we, too, hired American citizens. We had to have documentations for the folks that we hired. Wouldn't it be great, though, since you brought it up, the Competes Act? Mm-hmm. Look, we all want to compete better with China. We know that they're our adversary. They consider us the enemy. First of all, the Competes Act doesn't do that. It doesn't do anything to secure America from an aggressive, bellicose China. But shouldn't the Competes Act be about a competitive America? And what about the competition that American citizens are in their own country for their own jobs with people that are here illegally? Shouldn't the Competes Act be about making sure people don't come here illegally? And let's face it, some folks have already talked about the policy that's required. The Border Patrol said, we just need the policy. Policy's in place. Mm-hmm. Laws are in place. Article 2, Section 3 says the president will faithfully execute, but if the president doesn't faithfully execute, the laws are in place. Whether we call the Competes Act something against China or whether the Competes Act is about American citizens who have to compete in their own country against foreigners, if no one's going to faithfully execute it, it's not going to matter.
Oh, absolutely, Mr. Perry. And then we learned yesterday that Border Patrol agents are completely demoralized, that they are not even capable of doing the job that they were hired to do, that our United States government hired them to do, because their authorities are not allowing them to do it. And so they're not able to deport illegal aliens so that our American people can have jobs. No, our American people are having to compete with them. But even worse, what we learned is about fentanyl. Fentanyl coming from China. And that's what bothered me when I was listening today to the Democrats debate this bill with us, is that only in this Competes Act bill, it mentioned fentanyl 10 times, only 10 times. But yet it's Chinese fentanyl coming from communist China that is killing young people. It's the #1 cause of death with Americans age 18 to 45. And that's a tragedy, but yet we've been controlled by COVID-19. Children in school are forced to wear masks. People are told they have to take vaccines. It's totally out of control, but yet it's fentanyl from China. And here's something else. Maybe you can help me out with this, Mr. Perry, since I'm new here. Why doesn't the Joe Biden administration, why don't the Democrats care about doing something about fentanyl, a horrible poison coming in from China, but yet they care more about coral reefs?
I think that's a great question. Over 100,000 dead from overdose due to fentanyl coming from through our southern border from communist China, and yet we're locked down in many places still in the United States, in their capital city. People from across the country can't come here and get a meal. You can't even come into the Capitol. I also like to recognize Mr. Clyde from Georgia. Should get in on this. Maybe you can answer your colleague's question, because I sure can't.
Well, thank you, Mr. Perry. You know, I just think that the Democrats, they just don't know how to govern this city. That's just a huge issue. You know, and we can see that with what's happening on the southern border. President Biden's raging border crisis and the harm it inflicts upon our great country, the dangerous catastrophes that I simply cannot ignore. We're talking about over 2 million illegal crossings in a single year, thousands of pounds of fentanyl seized, as we just talked about, and an unknown number of illegal migrants, some with criminal records, some on the terrorist watch list, released into hundreds of communities across the nation. Yet out of cowardice or complacency or both, the Democrats remain silent on record high levels of illegal migrant crossings and drug seizures at our southern border. My Republican colleagues and I have responded to the left's inaction with letters demanding answers, with legislation, and with continuous coverage of what's really happening under Biden's watch. Furthermore, my House Freedom Caucus colleagues, led by my good friend Chairman Perry, held a hearing on the Biden administration's open border policies and inadequate border security just yesterday. During this hearing, we heard numerous witnesses describe the fire of chaos at the border and the policies that have fueled the flames. Many Americans know about the ongoing border crisis and its root causes. Joe Biden and his crisis-ridden, failed administration with a 33% approval rating. Yet I don't believe the American people are aware of the United Nations involvement that aids migrants on their expedition to our southern border. According to one of the witnesses that participated in our hearing yesterday, Todd Bensman of the Center of Immigration Studies, UN agencies such as the International Office of Migration and the United Nations Commissioner for Refugees and their counterparts are providing assistance, including financial assistance, to help migrants on their journey, where they will eventually attempt to illegally cross the United States border. This witness further explained that the United Nations Cash-Based Interventions Program supplies reusable plastic cash cards worth hundreds of dollars each and cash-filled envelopes, among additional resources to individuals on the migrant trail from South America to Texas. This is unbelievable, it's illogical, it's criminal, and it's just plain wrong. The United Nations is actively subverting the security of our southern border. Just think about that statement for a moment. Just think about it. But guess again who's funding the bill? It's the American taxpayer. The United States contributes billions of dollars to the United Nations every year, meaning our citizens are paying for fraudulent UN programs that contribute to the very border crisis that is threatening their lives and livelihoods. It's also absolutely ludicrous that our country is funding programs and then the UN simultaneously derails our national security, sovereignty, and freedoms. As our national debt just hit $30 trillion, this senseless spending isn't just fiscally irresponsible, it's also morally bankrupt, as it enables illegal migrants, human traffickers, drug smugglers, dangerous criminals, and terrorists to take advantage of the Biden administration's open border policies. Well, enough is enough. We must defund all these UN programs. Not defund the police, but defund the UN programs that encourage foreigners to violate our laws, to breach our border, to jeopardize our nation, and put Americans last. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and I inquire with the chair the time remaining.
The gentleman